So how are we feeling? We excited? Yeah, we're good. It is all downhill from here, I'm afraid. But we'll get through this. So navigating Crossroads, I was given this word by Sophie like 4 or 5 months ago. And if I'm honest, when I first got the word, I didn't really connect with it. I was like, okay, Crossroads, fair enough. I actually had my eyes on some of the other words that came along this year, like layers, parallel, and journey. But the more that I thought about the word crossroads, the more I realized, hold on a minute, Sass. Crossroads is actually the perfect word for me to talk about because I feel like I've been standing at a crossroads for much of my life. Maybe I was so close to the word I didn't even see it until I really thought about it. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before that, a little bit about me, if it goes on to the next slide. Oh, there we go. So I'm not actually that down with the kids, but my girlfriend is. She knows what's on trend right now. And she said a good way to introduce myself would be through AI. So ChatGPT made me this. I just told it like, I like these things, make a toy of me. And apparently this is what kids are doing right now. AI is always much kinder to you than you feel like you are. So it's made me a lot buffer than I actually am, but it's fine. We'll go with that. There's a little bit about me, some of my interests, but we won't spend too much time on that. We'll move along. Oh, disclaimers. So a few little disclaimers before we get into it. Trigger warning. I'm going to be talking about mental health and trauma and depression. Kind of heavy stuff for a Friday morning when it's nice and sunny. So just wanted to put that out there. I know it can be a little bit heavy, but mental health is still stigmatized. You're probably aware of that. And yeah, I kind of feel like it's a good thing to be able to talk about, create safe spaces where people can feel like there's no shame to talk about things. And the more I've spoken about it, the more I've realized that a lot of people also want to talk about it, but they feel like they can't or it's difficult. So yeah, that's where I'm going with this. And I'm just some dude. I'm not an expert. I'm not pretending to have all the answers. I'm not pretending to be, I have no formal training in therapy or mental health. But I do have my life experience. I've done a bunch of therapy. I've read a lot into it. And I just feel like I want to share some of that today in the hope that it might help some of you, perhaps give you some ideas. Maybe you already know all this, so it might be a waste of time, but we'll see. And there will be some smiles too. I want to reassure you, as I know it's Friday morning, you're all looking forward to the weekend. I don't want to just bore you and make you feel horrible about life. So I'll try to spice it up with some smiles along the way. So crossroads, that was my word. What are crossroads? Obviously, crossroads are a physical phenomenon, as you can see from the photo, where several roads come together into one central point. But they are also a figurative thing. They have a metaphorical meaning as well. Google defines it as a point at which a crucial decision must be made which will have far-reaching consequences. Very profound. I sat with it for a while as well, and I came up with my own interpretation of the word when I thought about my own life experiences and some of the struggles I've had along the way. And for me, okay, I'm warning you, it's a lot of words, so prepare yourselves. For me, I defined it as a state of paralysis driven by fear, overwhelm, and a trauma-rooted sense of powerlessness. I know that's intense. I know. We're going to get through this. I'm going to break it down for you. So there you go. That's something that I've struggled with for a bit. And trauma, you noticed I used the word trauma there. It's a word that gets thrown around a lot. And I'm going to just give you a definition that I found online. There are loads of definitions for it, and it kind of varies, but this is one that resonated with me. So trauma is a physiological response to witnessing or living through a psychologically overwhelming event that often alters an individual's ability to cope and function. So that's one way of putting it. As I said, there's multiple definitions out there. Another one that I quite liked was from this book called Waking the Tiger. It's a really interesting book on trauma by Peter Levine. He's quite a well-known psychologist. And he mentioned that traumatized people remain overwhelmed by the event, defeated and terrified, virtually imprisoned by their fear. They are unable to re-engage in life. So as I mentioned, there's this sense of paralysis. that can be felt by people that have experienced trauma. They can feel like they are frozen in some way, unable to react in the way that they would like to. So there you go. Now, there's many ways you can experience trauma. It can come out through all sorts of events. It can even come out through sustained situations rather than one single event. But one of the major factors that plays into trauma can be a chaotic home environment. When you're a child, you're young, you're a sponge, you don't know what's going on, so you're very sensitive to all kinds of things around you. That was certainly the case in my home growing up. And it wasn't all bad. You know, my parents were very good people. They are very good people. They only wanted the best for me and my sisters. But they also carried their own trauma, their own wounds. There was a lot of conflict in my house. There was a lot of fighting. There was some horrible things that happened. And it kind of resulted at one point in my parents separating and me growing up with an absent father. So it can be a very difficult thing to like grow up without someone there to kind of guide you along the way. So that's one thing. But as I said, I don't want it to get too heavy. So it was also a fun home. I had a lot of fun. So here's a video of me running into a chair. So, you know, as I said, it was a mixed bag. It wasn't all bad. There were good times too, just to make it a little bit lighter. But as I said, some of the bad things that happened, they did leave some wounds there, some abandonment wounds, a sense of like confusion as to how to be a man in the world, in this world where, you know, society places a lot of importance on conforming to a certain gender role. So that's one of the ways I experienced trauma. Another way was discrimination. So my dad, he's from Iran, and my parents decided to move to this tiny village in the English countryside where everyone was English, everyone was white, and we kind of stood out as a kind of weird family. And both him and I, we both experienced discrimination. For me, it was bullying. So there were a lot of kids older than me that were verbally abusive, they were physically abusive. And it's not like everyone in the town was like this. There were a lot of good people, a lot of friends I'm still friends with today that I consider very good people. But there was a specific group of people in this town that were just super xenophobic, let's say. And I didn't realize that this had affected me until many, many years later. But I realized looking back that it created this sense of identity crisis because I didn't feel welcome in the country I was living in. So I kind of wondered, well, where do I belong? Where should I go? Where is my home? And it created a lot of suppressed anger in me. It created a sense of, needing to choose between being fully English, because I felt like that was the only acceptable thing to be, and suppressing my Iranian heritage, or being all of myself. And it felt like a difficult thing to decide between these two things. So there you go. School, you can see I was a bit of a weird kid, trying to fit in and failing miserably. But school was another environment where there were some struggles. And again, it was nuanced. There was a lot of good things as well. It wasn't all bad. But I'd say as I went into like late teens, I started to struggle a lot because there was a lot of alpha male energy in my environment. There was a lot of pressure to be a man in a specific way, which in that environment meant suppressing my emotions, acting all tough, being very dominant. And as you can see from the photo, that does not line up with who I am. So I found that very difficult. I was like, oh, how do I act all dominant? What the hell is this? It created a lot of social anxiety. Am I doing the right thing? Am I going to be kicked out of the group because I'm too sensitive, blah, blah, blah. It created, again, this sense of crossroads. I'll come back to that word, between being myself and fitting into the group and being accepted. Which felt like, I can't do both. That's tricky. And another heavy slide. Don't worry, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. But depression. This is something that I experienced when I got to about the age of 16. I think all of these things that had been building up in the background were a lot for someone to sort of deal with. And I think eventually my body and my mind was like, oh, this is too much. And I didn't feel like I had anyone to share this with. So I think at one point my body just shut down and I just became very numb. I kind of closed off to everyone around me. I didn't feel like I had any joy anymore. And I had no idea what was going on. I just felt like, oh, something's different. It was only until later that I realized what had happened. But this lasted for about 2 years, until at the age of 18, I decided to go on a gap year, and I moved to Berlin for 1 year. You can see I'm a very young 18-year-old boy, got no clue what's going on, and I'm in this crazy international city full of hippies. And I've moved from this very small conservative village. I was like, what is going on? This is overwhelming. And I moved in with some people, a bunch of hippies, let's be honest, a bunch of Berlin hippies that were a lot older than me. So I was 18, they were like 25, 30, 35. They had a lot more life experience than me, and they were used to living in an international environment with all these different cultures, ways of life. And I was honestly very blown away by the experience. One of the things that shocked me was that they were genuinely curious about my Iranian heritage. They were like asking me questions. They didn't react with like hostility or aggression. And that was new to me. I was like, wow, this is cool. I can actually talk about this. And suddenly it kind of sparked in my mind, I actually want to get in touch with this part of my family. It's like 50% of where I'm from. And I became a tour guide. I took people around the city, which was, a bit of fun. And another thing was that I lived with a bunch of guys as well, and I was kind of blown away by hearing them speak. They would speak quite vulnerably about their emotions. They would talk about, their struggles in a very open way. And I was like, what the hell? Like, there's a way of doing this? I didn't know that was a thing. Fair enough. So that kind of planted this seed in my head that, okay, you can be a man and do that and not be weak, and it's fine. So this was all good. It gave me a little bit of hope, but unfortunately it didn't last forever. I then moved to London, and as you can see from the photo, I fell back into depression. It was, I guess I just still hadn't figured out like how to do the life thing, and fell into some dysfunctional habits and relationships. But this time was a little bit different. This time I'd had that experience in Berlin, and I was like, I'm determined to kind of pull myself out of this somehow. And I poured these feelings into art. So I channeled them. Since I was studying film and television production in London, I decided, okay, I'm going to make some films, and I'm going to talk about mental health. And I contacted a couple of musicians that I was a fan of, emailing them. I wasn't sure if they would reply, but I was like, if I'm going to make a music video for anyone, I hope it will be one of the musicians I actually listen to. And I was super surprised when two of them replied to me, and they were like, sure, go ahead, make us a video. And I was like, wow, amazing. What should I make it on? And they said, whatever you want. And I was like, oh, amazing, cool. So that's one of the videos I made. That's a shot from the video. That's the crew I worked with. And that's another video I made, a screenshot, and the crew that worked with me on it. This one in particular on the left there, it's called Pandora. It's loosely inspired by the Greek myth of Pandora's box. I believe it's Greek. And it tells the story of a man who is a grown adult, but he feels very disconnected in life. He feels depressed. He feels like he's struggling at work and in relationships. He feels it's all meaningless. And he feels very restricted. And I'm going to show you a little clip from the video. It's also, he reflects on his childhood and how he felt a lot freer as a kid. And kind of the story is about him getting back in touch with his inner child. And well, you'll have a little look here. So here's a little look from that video. So there you go, a little clip from that. Gives you an idea of it. Thank you. Yeah, if you're interested, it's on YouTube. You can check it out in full. I would say it's not like it fixed all my problems. It didn't completely make me feel amazing again, but it did help me in some way, because I think putting some of those feelings into art and seeing other people connect with the story and the characters that you put out there, that you put a lot of yourself into, getting some of that feedback where people were saying, wow, I connected with the story, it took me on a journey, and I felt like, I tried to bring the character to some sort of resolution where he overcomes some of these feelings. It's a very rewarding experience, I would say, having that feedback and bringing people together, because film is very much a team job. So it's a good way of all coming together to channel those feelings into something kind of nice, let's say. The other thing that I did was I went to Iran to reconnect with that side of my heritage. All these family members, that's my dad's sister, so my aunt, and then her kids and their partners. And they were all strangers to me. Like, I didn't know them. I'd never really had much contact with them. I didn't know the language. There was a big language barrier. But I just had this feeling like I need to go there and discover what the hell this whole side of myself is, learn the language. So I went and spent some time there around that same period. And I was honestly blown away by how welcoming everyone was, how kind they were, and how it felt like I knew them immediately as soon as we hung out together. And it's not just the family as well, it was just people in the streets as well. People were very kind, very hospitable. You'll hear lots of negative things about Iran, and it's true that some of that is true, but there's also a lot of good stuff. And unfortunately, we never hear about that stuff in the news. So yeah, it was a very cool experience going there. Now, another way that I explored mental health and my creativity was through my relationship with my grandma. So as I was finishing my studies in London that year, I lost 2 other grandparents in the space of a year, and that left me with 1 remaining grandparent alive. And in that moment, I kind of realized, oh crap, like I never knew the other grandparents. I never knew any of my grandparents because they all lived abroad and I didn't really have the chance. So in that moment, I thought, you know what? I'm going to go move to Switzerland. That's why I live here. I moved in with this lady who used to live there with my granddad, but he passed away. So I took his room and I decided, you know what? I'm going to make a film about her. It will be my way of like getting to know her and preserving her memory. So that's what I did. Oh, and just to give you a little feeling about my grandma, what she was like as a person, this just summarizes her personality in like 20 seconds. So here we go. So there you go. Yeah, very much a rebel, very much a contrarian, but also quite charming and full of love. And that's us living in Switzerland the first year I moved here, so 2018, on a trip to Gruyere for the day. And these are a couple of posters that were not designed by me, but by my awesome girlfriend, Eleanor. And I just wanted to mention, when I came to Switzerland to make this film, I had a certain memory of my grandma from a child, where she was very sociable, she was very positive, and she was an international tour guide. So she'd take people all around the world, like to India, China, Russia. And I thought the film would be a very happy sort of film about her, like telling her life stories. But when I arrived in Switzerland, I found quite a different woman. Her husband had passed away several years before. She'd got a lot older. She'd stopped traveling the world, and she just became a lot more disconnected. And yeah, she would smoke all day basically and be a little bit low. So the film is a quite different film from the one I was anticipating I would make. It kind of became me coming into her life and trying to like re-spark the joy that she once had. We write a bucket list together. So let me see, there we go. On the top left there, that's us writing a bucket list of things she still wanted to do in life. One of the things was to go in a hot air balloon. So that's one of the things we do. But this is a little clip as well from the film, which gives you a little feeling of this low mood that I found her in.
I'm a fool to smoke. I wouldn't start again if I was younger. But it's too late now. I'm gonna have a horrible death. And as I'm a Christian, I couldn't ask for exit. And I'm sorry for my family. Me to watch me die this awful death.
So there you go, a bit of a heavy one. There were also a lot of happy scenes in the film again, but I just wanted to show you how she felt at times. And I think it was an interesting learning experience for me, because I kind of realized while making the film, like, oh, I've been feeling kind of depressed. And here we are, I'm realizing I'm living with another person that kind of shares my similar feelings. And it kind of opened my mind to the fact that a lot of people around us are struggling as well, but we don't always see it because we are told we should never tell anyone about this. So that kind of reinforced my interest in this topic, let's say. And then the pandemic rolled around. You can see me on the left there. I used to work at Nestle, and they were very worried about the pandemic. So they made me walk around in a mask and a visa, which was very extreme. But yeah, during this time of the pandemic, I decided I would start doing therapy myself. I'd never done it before, but I was still struggling with some of the stuff that I mentioned before. And I thought, it's time, I'm going to go into all of this stuff, see what's going on. And I didn't expect it to be as transformative an experience as it was. But honestly, I found the right therapist. We had a very good sort of chemistry, a good relationship. And it really just blew my mind. All of the stuff that I told you about my childhood, I hadn't really known consciously. And I kind of learned it all in that. I was like, oh, wow, all of this stuff. It was like I'd been living with the lights off all my life. And doing therapy was like turning the lights on and going okay. I'm stuck at a crossroads. I didn't know. Now I know why. And yeah, it was a super interesting experience, growing self-awareness. But it wasn't quite enough, I would say. I think what happened later was also important for overcoming some of these struggles. And that was taking action. So, sometimes with therapy, I think we can talk about stuff. But sometimes it also requires a bit of action as well. These are some examples of taking action. And I just want to draw your attention to the fact I did a stand-up comedy show. I always had a lot of stage fright and social anxiety, but I always wanted to do something like this where I'm standing in front of people. So last year, my girlfriend bought me a comedy course, which I didn't know would result in me having to do a comedy set. I thought it would just be a few useful tips, and I was like, yeah, that's good. It'll brush up a bit of confidence. But in the very first session, he was like, in 6 weeks, you're going to be on stage in front of 60 people. And I was like, oh, crap. And one of those people was actually Kate. So you can see this lady here that's shielding her eyes from the horrible things I was saying. That is our former speaker from CreativeMornings, Kate, who has just happened to be in the shot while I was filming. So I thought I'll just throw that in there because it's funny. And yeah, a lot of other things I tried to do to kind of push it forward. The documentary, I filmed it 6 years ago, but I procrastinated for a long time. I didn't finish the edit. So about 2 years ago, I kind of just pulled myself together. I was like, I need to get this done. I got it done. I organized a premiere where I invited my friends. We booked a cinema. I showed them that. And I also managed to show it to my grandma 1 month before she died. So that was just thank God that happened because she was able to experience it. And a few other things, while I was doing therapy, I decided I would be quite open about it. I didn't hide it from people. So it kind of led to a lot of interesting conversations with my family. I feel like it kind of brought us together a lot more. I also, with my male friends, I didn't hide it. My male friends, I always historically did not share anything because that was what we were expected to do. But the more that I shared with them, the more they started to share with me. The more they started to say, oh, you know what? I was also struggling at school. And we actually realized we all had kind of similar struggles, but no one knew because we had to act tough. So that was really interesting, and it definitely brought us a lot closer. And lastly, my dad had always been quite a stranger to me. I told you I grew up with an absent dad. So I thought an interesting thing to do would be to invite him onto a podcast and sit him down for several hours and ask him about his life, fill in the gaps in my knowledge, which was a really interesting experience. And he's not a man that shares much. He's a man of very few words. But somehow when I put him in front of a microphone, suddenly he just became like a celebrity. I don't know, he had lots to say. And now just a little slide on what's going on right now in the culture. Having an absent father, not having a male role model to look up to, I was kind of looking around for some sort of guidance, like how do you be a man? How do you figure out this life thing? And it made me reflect on boys growing up now who might not have that father figure either. Who are they looking to for guidance? And when you look around, you see some of these characters, they tend to have quite male followings, and some of their advice when it comes to that is pretty toxic. So I think it would be great if one day we had more famous role models that were sharing maybe a different version of masculinity. It's an interesting thought experiment to wonder how different the world would be if our leaders all did therapy. I think if Trump did therapy, it would probably go something like this. So I'm doing therapy We're doing the therapy. Melania, she made me do it. She made me do it. She's had enough. And I'm working with a great guy. He's doing a great job. He's probably the best in the business. And it turns out I have feelings. I have billions and billions of feelings, tremendous feelings, and some not so tremendous ones, but we're working through those. You might not recognize me once he's done with me, but we'll see what happens. Probably something like that. Maybe one day it will happen, but I'll be shocked. And overcoming the crossroads, just a few little summaries basically on the talk. These are things that helped me. Maybe they'll help you, I don't know. Acknowledging the crossroads. So as I said, I didn't know, I wasn't aware of the fact that I'd experienced trauma, that I was depressed, that I felt powerless. There were all these things that were kind of unconscious to me. So the first step was acknowledging that this was there. Recognizing my power. So I think trauma can fool us into thinking that we're powerless and that, there's no point working on ourselves because it's not gonna, that's for other people and we have no power over ourselves. But actually we have a lot more power than we realize. And that's one crucial aspect of being able to overcome this. Finding a healthy outlet, that was something that helped me a lot with the music videos, but for many of us it could be different. It could be other forms of art, it could be exercise, it could be journaling. You have to find what works for you. Reframing vulnerability as strength. This applies to many people, but I think especially in the guy circles where we're taught that vulnerability is weakness. I think if you're able to sit with your demons and work on them, I think that's quite a strong thing to be able to do. But yeah, that's my way of looking at it. Surrounding yourself with a supportive community. I think that's essential. You need to be with people that understand you, that will support you, that you feel safe to share things with. Seeking professional help when needed. So, for me that was therapy, it was talk therapy, but it's not for everyone. Like I know a lot of people that have tried talk therapy, it's not for them, and that's fair enough. But I think it's good to experiment if you feel like you need it and find what would work for you, because there's so many solutions out there now. Well, there's so many types of therapy and working through things. Sharing vulnerably, as I said, I think just feeling seen and heard is super helpful. Taking action, as I said, it's all well and good talking about this stuff, growing self-awareness, but sometimes you need to challenge yourself, step outside your comfort zone, do things that terrify you. And it can be small things. You can start small. You don't need to start with huge stuff. I think that can be overwhelming. But choosing a path. So if you're stuck there at that crossroads, there are many different ways of reacting, but maybe you feel paralyzed. I certainly did. For me, what helped was just taking any path, even if it was uncertain, it was imperfect, but just sort of doing something. I think motion kind of creates clarity, it creates momentum, and just staying stuck kind of just keeps you stuck. So those are the things that help me. Maybe you can find something of use in that. I do not have all the answers, so I'm still at a crossroads many times in my life. I'm still working through things, so I don't want this to sound preachy, okay? But yeah, thank you guys for listening. And if you have any questions, feel free. And thank you. Yeah. Oh, question.
Yes. Is there going to be another opportunity where we can see the film about your dream?
Yes. So I'd said that I procrastinated it for a long time. I finally did the premiere 2 years ago, and then I procrastinated more. The next stage is submitting it to film festivals, which I'm just doing now. So I finally kind of moved my ass, and I'm submitting it to film festivals. Some of them are in Lausanne, but I don't know if they'll be accepted. So let's see. If it gets accepted, there'll be screenings in autumn of this year, so from September through to January. So perhaps. And eventually, once that's done, I'll put it online. So at one point, it will be online, but yeah. Yeah. Yes?
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing your gangster grandmother with us.
Oh, you're welcome, yeah.
I was thoroughly inspired by her. I'm
Nice.
walking around with my big hair and my big rings on and trying to be myself here as well.
Yeah, you're doing a good job. Yeah, yeah, very nice.
What was her reaction?
What was her reaction? She was very moved. I mean, she was struggling with Alzheimer's, if I'm honest. And there were lots of days where she didn't remember things. But somehow there was one day when I saw her, because she was in the UK at that point, 6 days out of this week, she was not herself. And then the last day I went to see her, she was way more herself. And I showed her the documentary that day, and she suddenly remembered like all these people that are in the film, like her old friends. And yeah, she just said like how great it was to relive those times and see those people again. So yeah, it was very nice. Yes.
You're obviously an exceptional talent. You've got an eye here and multi-level layers that I was there. Just a quick question. As a professional, when you're doing creative material, and then the opposite is you have your grandmother in front of you, and she's opening up to you at such an emotional level. How do you balance the creative filmmaker when your grandmother's in front of you and your father?
That's
taking you on a journey
yeah.
as the creator, but also you're part of the content.
It's true. It's a very weird situation to be in, because you have these two forces. There's the filmmaker in you, and there's the grandson. And sometimes they don't go together, because you maybe as a filmmaker, sometimes you want a scene that's more dramatic because it's going to be more engaging or whatever. But it's your grandma, so you don't want to push her and make her do things that are uncomfortable and make her cry or whatever. But you know that would make a better film. So it's like this weird tension. But honestly, with her especially, I don't think I needed to worry too much, because she just is herself, or was herself very, very openly. And so she already, without me even needing to say anything, she would just kind of deliver these scenes where you're like, wow. But it's true that if I was working with someone else, perhaps that would be more of a difficult question. Yeah, there was one scene in particular where we were in Lausanne, on this famous old bridge in Lausanne, and I'm pushing her along in a wheelchair. And at one point she sees this tourist shop selling souvenirs on the bridge, and she gets so angry about the souvenir shop, and she says, they should be ashamed of themselves. This is a historical bridge. Why are they selling things on here? And what I probably should have done, because I know what she's like in that mood, is kind of just move away from the shop. But I didn't. We kind of went past the shop, I pushed her past it, and then she kind of started shouting at the shop owners, saying you should be ashamed of yourselves, you're selling souvenirs here. So that was one of those moments where I was like, oh, maybe the filmmaker in me took over, and I was like, oh yeah, this is great cinema. But then I had to go over to the shop owner and be like, I'm so sorry about that. But they took it very well. They were like, don't worry, we can talk, we're human, it's fine. And as soon as the lady told my grandma, this shop has been here for 100 years, my grandma just stepped away immediately. She was like, oh, okay, fine, sorry. Have a good day, bye-bye. It was a very weird, going from this level down to very calm in 1 second. But yeah. Yeah.
Sas, it was so great to hear your story, because I feel I know you so well, and now I know
oh, now you know everything. Nothing left to know now.
Nothing like. But I actually want to talk exactly about the future, because I think, so I love what you said. I think there's so many similarities in some of our story. You move away, and then I think the effect of bettering yourself, there's an irony there, because you can also be very isolating. So you're bettering yourself, but then you lose some friends because they wanted to do whatever, drugs, and you don't, etc. And I love what you said about turning on the lights, right? I had the same feeling in therapy, but then you turn on the lights and you realize you're just at the door, and then there's a full house to explore.
Yeah.
And I just wonder if you feel because now this talk came from such a, let's say, a safe, secure place. You seem to be doing so well. But is that a continuous search? Are you afraid of that search? Because I think the more we go, the more we're oh, fuck. I'm just this.
Oh, yeah, it never ends. No. That's why I said at the end, I'm still at this crossroads a lot of the time. So this is not me pretending that my life is perfect and I solved everything, but I did solve some things. And those were some very important things, like knowing my Iranian family, knowing my dad. I think those were cool things. And unfortunately, not everyone has that opportunity. That maybe their parents have passed away, or maybe their family won't respond in a way that they're hoping. So it's not always going to fit the way it worked for me. And yeah, I'm still searching with other things, but I try not to get too focused on it. because it's true then if you get too into personal development and this stuff, it can also become unhealthy because you always think that you're not enough and there's always more you have to do, and it is a balancing act. I think it's good to do it, but it's also good to know when to take a break and like just do something else. So I don't know if that answered your question, but yeah.
Absolutely answers, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yes.
I have a question about what the reaction around you is when you share your story, especially with male friends.
Well, as I said, like I was pleasantly surprised that some of them were like genuinely, they started reacting to me in a similar way. Like they started opening up, and they started telling me like, "Oh, you're the only person I can tell this thing to. I've never shared that with anyone else." And that was a weird feeling to think like, "Wow, okay, they're trusting me with this thing." But I guess it's unusual. It's unusual for like two men to get together and talk about that. But it was nice. I think there was something I'd been like craving. So it was, it was cool. There are friends I wouldn't share this with. Like it would be harder to share it with because they would react in a weird way. I'd like to, but I don't know how I'd do it. Maybe I'd do it in a lighter way. I wouldn't do this whole presentation on them. They'd be like, what the fuck is going on? Yeah, but yeah, you've got to like moderate it based on the person you're talking to.
I feel like maybe becoming a therapist.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Not to hold you that, but why, just in your opinion, why do you have to moderate your truth?
That's a good point.
Your truth.
That's true.
If other people can't handle your truth.
That is very true. Yeah, maybe I should do this presentation. Just get all my guy friends in a room and be like, you're going to listen to this. Yeah, I don't know. But as I said, I'm still figuring it out. Maybe I'll get to that point at one point. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Thank you again for sharing this story. I think a lot of people don't feel like sharing these stories because they're very intimate. But when you share them, it makes people raise awareness or like feel that there's other people going through the same things. And what I wanted to ask you is, these moments, like the picture that you showed there after Berlin, you look pretty depressed.
Oh yeah.
These moments are difficult when you are there, but at the same time are those moments that help you touch the bottom and then get to know yourself better.
Oh yeah.
Right? To grow.
Yeah.
So there are also moments of opportunity.
Oh, for sure.
If you could send a message to yourself when you were there, what would you tell to yourself?
Wow.
Would you change anything, or would you go through the same discovery path that you went to?
Yeah. I mean, I try not to think about it too much because then I start regretting and thinking, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. I try to like accept that it just unfolded the way it did, and I'm glad that I'm where I am now. But I guess I would have said something along the lines of, you know, using this as an opportunity. That's what I said, I think, in the description for the event, like crossroads can hold us back, but they can also be opportunities for personal growth and transformation. And I think, yeah, hitting rock bottom, often that's like that for many people, I think, can be the trigger to actually starting to do something. You know, we could kind of tolerate a bit of meh for a very long time, but when we hit rock bottom, I think that can be a moment where we're like, oh crap, I need to sort this out. So that was definitely the case for me. So yeah, I would just say embrace that journey of discovering that and working on myself, doing therapy. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think more than a question, just a thank you for speaking up and for taking this space. I feel like the world at the moment can feel like very overwhelming for many of us. And you mentioned like some of these toxic characters and like, you know, this toxic masculinity. And like in a world where these characters can feel so loud and so like, you know, just overpowering, like they're everywhere, realizing that there are like good humans and good men still out there and taking that space and reclaiming that space to talk about these things. It's just very encouraging for someone who is raising girls and like that feels like very daunting. Thank you for shining like that light.
Okay.
Like just in a world that feels a bit dark.
Yeah.
In that space, just thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for saying that. Yeah, it's very kind of you. Yeah. And I don't, like, the thing is, it's weird for me to be up here. Like, I don't see myself as this like great person or whatever. But I just noticed more and more that just people don't talk about it. But the more I talked about it, the more I realized, oh, there is a hunger for people to talk about this stuff, especially amongst my guy friends. So I just thought, oh, I guess I'll talk about it. Like it's like a duty. But I don't want to like put myself up there and be like, wow, I'm so great, because there's, you know, there's a lot of things I'm still working through.
Well,
Yeah, thank you though. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I'll let you take over.
No, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
We are also functioning because of Adobe. So Adobe is our global sponsor, and they're really committed to supporting creatives all around the world. So with their support, we're starting to work on some virtual field trips, and they're able to help us with some, you know, our HQ team, some of the website functionalities, kind of the infrastructure that we have today is thanks to global sponsors like Adobe. When I discovered this space, I was like, oh, I love this. It's like such a beautiful event space. So they have this room, they have a room next door as well, and maybe a smaller room somewhere else, but I would say this one's the prettiest one. But they rent it out for meetings and events. So the food is also provided by Tibbet. So it's a very convenient location, I would say, but next to the train station, and a really beautiful and authentic and charming space. So thank you to our sponsor, Tibbet.